Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Live Language Facilitation Q&A. And welcome if you're watching on the replay. My name is Marcie Mouser, and I am an intuitive speech and language pathologist consultant and language facilitation expert. And I help parents teach their late talking children how to use the words they need to share their wisdom with the world. And I do that with my Waves of Communication platform. So I'm welcoming you today to this episode of Live Q&A. If you have a question and you're joining me live, go ahead, please, and post it in the comments. And if you are joining me on the replay, you can post questions in the comments and I can get to them next week, or you can reach out and send me a private message. I collect questions all the time throughout the week, and sometimes I use them as a topic to get started on my Q&As, and that's what I'm going to do today. So today's topic, if you've seen the title, is about language facilitation with older kids. And while I'm waiting for some folks to join in with questions, I have 6 tips, I guess, for lack of a better word, about language facilitation with older kids. So I'm just going to make sure that this is all getting shared out and I'm able to see my comments when they start rolling in. And I'm going to go ahead and start to dig into these tips. So the first thing that I want to let you know about language facilitation with older kids, and when I'm talking about older kids, I'm talking about the kids who are communicated. A lot of parents who have kids who are older than 5 or 6 or 7, and certainly older than 10 years old, are frequently, they tell me frequently that they are told by numerous practitioners, their doctors, their therapists, that their kids will never develop natural spoken language because it doesn't happen for kids when there's something that blocks their ability to do it or something like that in the brain. And that I have found in my Waves of Communication platform, in my program, that is absolutely not true. That in fact, children who are older than 10 years old, there's kids joining my program all the time. Now, parents who have kids, because the parents join my program, it's language facilitation consultation. So I train parents, I equip and empower them to be able to help their kids. And a lot of the parents who have joined my program have been to lots of therapy before, and the therapy that has focused on getting their kids to say words either by manipulating their mouth or through behavior methods or through using augmentative or alternative communication boards or picture systems, things like that. The parents who are reaching out to me are finding that those systems have broken down and their children are stuck with, if they are using verbal speech, it's labeling, requesting, that's all they get, and or echolalia. So once kids get to be past that 5 or 6 year age and older, and they do develop new communication, even in their therapies, those communication methods are increasingly nonverbal. So sign language, picture systems, pointing, and the parents find that they're limited, and they also notice that their kids are really still interested in talking and learning how to use spoken language. So that's why I have been wanting to focus on this subsection of kids, because that's one of the biggest issues, that parents just feel completely left out when they don't have them. So, and there's Deborah, who is one of those moms who has an older kiddo. So I'm so happy that you're all joining me. And so the first thing that I am going to tell you about older kids and language facilitation, the number one tip is that language facilitation actually has faster results with unprompted spoken language in older kids than in younger kids. And I believe the reason why, the number one reason why, is because older children have learned a lot of language. They've heard a lot of spoken language. They've been on the planet longer, listening to parents and teachers, and unless they've been living in a bubble and spending a lot of time on tablets, even then they have heard a lot of language from humans talking. And that is actually what it takes. That's how our brains are wired to learn spoken language, is by listening to others use spoken language effectively. We listen to people, we try it out ourselves until we get good at using language structures. That's how all humans learn spoken language, and that's how late talkers who use language facilitation learn to use language. So when parents start to use language facilitation and they talk to their kids in the way that their kids want to listen to, then they have the ability to listen more carefully and they develop language faster. So that's the first tip. Older kids respond faster to language facilitation than younger kids because they have heard a lot of language already. They might not be very good listeners, but they have heard spoken language, and even subconsciously it's getting in there. So the next thing I wanted to tell you about older kids, the number two tip, is that older kids have, again, been on the planet longer. They've been exposed to more and more things at schools and therapies and at home. And so they have more interests. And even if they have specific interests, they have specific interests about those things. So if your child likes to memorize things, if they like to build, if they like music, if they like, even using particular computer games, building block worlds and things like that, whatever they're good at, they really like to know everything about that thing. They want to know all the vocabulary that has to do with their particular area of interest. And this is wonderful information for language facilitator parents to use with older children, because where little kids don't know much about, they just know a little bit about a lot of things, older kids learn to know a lot about the things that they love. So parents, when you do language facilitation with your older kids, it's actually more beneficial for you to use the specific language, even complicated words about, let's say your child loves planets and they love the sky and all of that stuff. You need to use words like astronomy and astrologer and astronaut and cosmos and all the words that your child is going to be interested in about their area of interest. And all that vocabulary is what they're going to want to learn quickly. Little kids, they don't have enough exposure to that vocabulary. And especially if your child is reading and listening to blogs, they're going to hear all those words. And so facilitating a lot of information about a topic your child loves, you're going to get a lot more distance on your language facilitation time than trying to get them interested in what you want. Because that's the next tip. Number 3 is that older late talkers can be very set in their ways about how they communicate. They can be, really adamant about using certain behaviors. When they do a certain thing, they expect you to respond in a certain way. And so it's even more important for them to have the language facilitation activity be fun. It has to be fun and interesting for your child as they get older, even more so than the little kids, because little kids, you can bribe with bubbles or you can get them to do a lot of stuff, but older kids, they get way past all that stuff and they are more interested in learning things that help them, not that make you happy or not to get the reward. They get their reward by self-satisfaction. Older kids learn how to do that. That's why they develop sensory habits, they develop behavior habits, so that they know they can get their relief or feeling, whatever they want to feel, in some way. They figure out how to do it. They get to be really good problem solvers. And this can make them very set in their ways as far as how does the nonverbal, verbal, some words, some nonverbal things, how does all that work in your house if you have an older child? Well, it can be very complicated depending on your child's ways, because without any structured language like English, or every spoken language has a set of rules. And if your child is breaking those rules and just using language with echolalia or just using labeling and expecting you to fill in the blank, which is what most older kids do, they say words that they know you understand and expect you to fill in the blank instead of them trying to say the words. Because most older kids have given up on repeating what people say, because at some point or another they felt defeated, or that their words weren't good enough, or for some reason they just weren't effective, or they stopped being effective. And that's why they quit learning how to do them. Kids who are taught to use language that other people want to hear, they learn to say those things, but it's not real language. They just learn to say those things to make you happy, to get through the activity, endure it, or avoid it, know how to get you to stop doing those things. So older late talkers, they're very smart and they've been problem solving for a long time. So they can be set in their ways and you can be really stuck. So everything you try to get your child to do new must be super fun, because otherwise they're just doing it to make you happy. It has to be fun for them to want to do it on their own. All right. Tip number 4, and thanks so much for everybody who's joining me on this video today. We're talking about older late talkers, and if you have a question, please go ahead and post it in the comments. As soon as I finish with these tips, I'm going to take questions from everybody. All right, back to my notes. All right, tip number 4 is that older late talkers have learned how to read their parents the same way that parents learn how to read their kiddos. And they're very, very sensitive to emotions. So if your child is communicating their emotions, if they're super happy about something and they're communicating with behaviors like flapping or pacing or running around, or they're very sad about things and they communicate that by withdrawing or avoiding or maybe even being aggressive, all of those behaviors are the way your child is communicating their feelings, because it's important for all kids, all humans. One of the reasons we communicate is so that others understand our feelings, not just what we want to be warm and dry, but to actually know what our opinions are and how we feel about a certain thing. And this is very important for you as a parent of an older late talker. Do not negate the fact that your child has bigger feelings because they have bigger ideas, they might have bigger frustrations, and those are going to turn into bigger behaviors. But those things turn super fast. They switch out super fast, those behaviors, for language, when you start using the verbal language for the behaviors behind those, the feelings behind those behaviors. Why is your child wanting to slug you? What is making them so frustrated that they want to do that? And when you give them language to talk about that, I promise you, most kids don't want to slug their parents. They want to be kind and they want their parents to love them and have them be successful. They do these aggressive things because they don't have any other way to communicate those bigger feelings. Bigger kids get bigger ideas, and bigger ideas get bigger feelings. He hurt me. I feel bad. All of that stuff happens to nonverbal kids too. So older late talkers, a big part of, even at the very beginning of your language facilitation work, you need to be talking about the feelings that you see and observe and you perceive from your child. And just like I said, you perceive those feelings, your child perceives yours. And older late talkers, older parents of older late talkers often have massive feelings of fear, worry, anger at the system because they've spent money and time and effort into things that haven't worked. They've been given false promises by doctors. They've been told their kids have things wrong with them permanently. They've been told that their kids never will talk again. These things affect a parent in, I can't even, I'm an intuitive and I hear what people are telling me about them, and I can only imagine what it feels like to be a parent of a child who you're being told that your child has no future because they haven't learned to talk by the time they're 4, 5, or 6 years old. And I'm just here to tell you that it's not true. And if you hold on to the hope and follow my strategies and work with the things that I'm talking about to dig in and make little changes to help your child, you will see the improvement that will help you as a mom and dad overcome those fears of your child's future. Because especially once they hit 8 or 9 or 10 years old, you are worried what their future is going to be. If they're not able to communicate, how are they going to engage with other people and be safe in a world that's not always safe? All of these worries and fears and anxieties that you have, even though you don't talk about them to your child perceives those things in you. And if they see doom and gloom and feel doom and gloom from you as a parent, oh no, it's never going to happen, even though you're told that by other people, it's really, really important for you as a parent to check how you are presenting your energy to your child. When you ask them to do things or help you with things or you try to teach them things, make sure that you are always positive and encouraging and that you have confidence that your child will actually gain and develop this skill. Not, I'm trying this without any kind of whim or will or nilly. Your children know if you are confident about what you're asking them to do and engage in, just like they do when you're not. And if you're not confident about what you're doing and your child's not confident about your teaching, they're never going to listen, buy in, and go for what you want. That's why the secret is always to go back to the things that your child loves. Because if you talk about the things that they love in a way that's not pushy, that's not teaching them anything, just trying to share what they love with them and using natural language, they will want to, number one, listen to you. Because like I said, they've heard a lot of talking over their 10 to 15 years, but they haven't heard the words that they want to hear. They've heard the words that everyone else is trying to get them to say. And with language facilitation, you talk about the things your child wants to hear, they start to listen to you. And if you don't give up, if you keep at it, and you keep talking with your child in a way your child understands, they will learn natural spoken language. Because remember, the things that haven't worked for you with your older child, the things that your child refuses to do now, that you pushed them through for years, imitating words, labeling stuff, saying things, all that stuff is broken. Older kids don't like to do it. If you're making them do it or the therapist is making them do it, I promise you, they're only doing it just to make you happy or get the reward. Your rewards are probably by a 10-year-old child. If you haven't given up on that kind of therapy by 10 or been advised by your therapist, no therapist can get a 10-year-old child to imitate words. They're too smart. They know that it doesn't work for them. It's not a functional thing that they want to do, so they quit. That's when natural language facilitation must kick in, because it is what your kids want. They want to hear you saying the words that they want to learn, not you trying to pull out the words that you want them to say. That's the biggest deal about the older kids and why they make improvements so quickly. When you quit trying to pressure them into saying your words and teach them the words they want, they say them, because here's the next tip. Older kids have the capacity to try harder. They have had many failures. Think about it. If your child is 10 years old and they have not had capacity to use spoken language their whole life, they have been problem solving how to communicate. Even if your child is using very sophisticated letter boards, rapid prompting method, spelling out, typing, all of that stuff, they have felt the limitation of lack of using spoken language in a world where everybody else is talking. They feel that. And when you teach them that language actually is much easier than all that imitation stuff, it really is just relaxing, listening, talking together about the things that your child loves in a way that you know they are listening to you, and then encouraging them to try to use those words on their own with no pressure. I know it seems like a complicated thing, but if you want to know the step-by-step process, that's when you want to, really start digging into my stuff, like read my book or join my online course, because it takes you through the steps. There is a process for natural spoken language. In fact, it's how all talkers learn to talk, and I go through that stuff with you. If what you've been working on is broken down, show your child, look, I'm going to give you a way to see a really easy, fast, safe, and fun success. And if your child has some good success with trying something they love, they will try again and again and again and again. But if it's something that they don't love, if it isn't fun, it isn't fun. And it's always fighting. And you're fighting with your child, and your child's fighting with you. And you spend more time fighting about these activities than actually learning. So with older kids especially, less is more. They have the capacity to try hard. All you need to do is just offer them the right opportunities, and they will try on their own. When you put the responsibility to try in the hands of your child, that's when they will see improvements. And the older kids have capacity because they're smart. They're super, super smart. They've been problem solving for years, a whole decade, how to communicate. And when you show them, look, I'll give you an easy way, I'll give you an alternative way, just listen to me and try it this way, they will. But you have to overcome what's keeping them stuck in there, set in their ways too. So the blockages are big, but the rewards are big too. So that's a big, big part of this whole process with older kids. Little kids don't have the biggest blockages, but they also don't learn as fast. So there are pros and cons. And then there's one more reason that older kids do better with language facilitation, and that is because older kids want to have social language, especially after 10, because especially boys, they want to meet girls. Girls want to meet boys. They see other kids talking about social things. The television shows that they watch, the now pre-adolescent things that they're watching, are all about relationships. How do kids relate to each other? How do parents relate? Because that's what kids are thinking about when they're pre-adolescent. How do I fit in the world? And that's why in my Waves of Communication platform, I talk about my mission is helping parents teach their late talking kids to share their wisdom with the world, because these kids have so much language inside. Even the little kids, the 2 and 3 and 4-year-old kids who are starting to talk, they've been listening to you when you're talking, or they've been hearing you, I guess I should say, but they haven't been listening in the right way. And the things that you've been facilitating them to do have been training to say words that you want instead of facilitating the ones that they want. And even in the little kids, when they make a shift, their kids start talking faster because they find the reason. I want to talk because I want to ask for things. I want to talk because I want to make friends. And that's the last tip about older kids. They want to make friends. And there are only two things that will help people rocket ship, put jet fuel on your language learning. Number one is money. So they'll work really hard for reinforcement and learn to communicate if they have a good, reinforcement. That's why, how a lot of the behavior things go. But the other one is love. And if kids want to connect with other people, not to fall in love, but to share their ideas and share their fun and share their energy, that's why kids want to talk. They want to talk to make friends. And this is why we need them to use spoken language, because connecting with everybody else in the world is how they will learn everything from their teachers, from their friends, and most of all, and first of all, from you as parents. So those are the tips. I know that was kind of a long start in. We got in about 25 minutes on talking about the older kids. And I see that there's some people coming in. So that's what's going. Divine older. Anybody older than, it doesn't really matter, but it's older than that age, Reshka, of when therapists or doctors are telling parents that your kiddos are never going to talk, because that's not true. That's why I call every child who is delayed in using spoken language a late talker. Even if you're 2 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old, you just haven't had the right kind of language facilitation yet. Because I am just as confident that the parents of the 15-year-old kids in my program are getting their kids to talk as the 2-year-olds, the parents of the 2-year-olds in my program. They are all doing it because they are looking at the process with their ability. Like, what can they do to facilitate language in their home? They're not relying on therapists. They're not relying on ABA or even anyone else to do it. Even when those other people are doing things that don't agree with language facilitation, they are digging in and doing it in their homes, and their kids are going to the school and talking to those people. And they're saying, wait a minute, my child's not ever. So that's how it goes. All right, let's see. I did get a question earlier that someone had asked when I came on early this morning to test out my live, and she had mentioned that, and I can't remember who it is, sorry, but I did want to answer that question quick. And her question was, she's been following my my platform here for a little while and starting to do some things, and her child is saying more words, but he also is using a lot of gibberish talking. So that is a very common phase as kids move through once they learn that their mouth is actually good for communicating better than their body, and they start to say things like I'm mad instead of throw themselves on the floor, and they start to use words to label the things that they want, and they'll say cookie instead of I want a cookie. Start to use words like that. And in between those words that are actual words that you know what they are, you also hear da 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 da, Google gibberish stuff or things like that. And this is a normal stage for kids to move through when they are developing natural spoken language. As they learn that their mouth is good to say words, they suddenly want to be as good at talking as the people they are listening to. So whenever you start, once your child is independently saying words without you prompting, that means you've given your child responsibility to know that they are a talker. They just aren't good at it yet. So now they need to hear a lot more talking from you. And what they're doing is they're trying to listen, but what you're saying is coming at them too fast. So they're trying to keep up and use their words the same way that you want to, but you still hear that other stuff. And whenever you hear more gibberish coming out of your child, your strategy is to dial your language facilitation back and talk more slowly so your child can understand everything you say. Now, you can't talk that slow all day, every day. You use that careful talking in those times when it's really important for your child to listen and whenever you really want to facilitate language. Because your talking, if it's too fast, will go straight over their head. And an older child, maybe you know that they're understanding you and you think, well, I don't have to talk slow because my child follows all the directions. But remember, this isn't about following directions and receptive language. This is about using spoken language. And the only way we learn to use spoken language is by hearing it used carefully, appropriately, and frequently. Kids have to hear a lot of humans talking to learn how it works. They have to hear humans talking to them. They have to hear humans talking to each other. And they have to hear different humans talking to them. So mommy talks different than daddy, talks different than teacher, talks different than therapist. That's how we learn to share our wisdom and use good language with everybody. So that's the answer to the question that I got earlier. And then Josana's here and she says, how do I know if it's fun for my kid is just doing to make me happy? My son is 7 years old. 7 years old would qualify as one of these older late talkers. And that is a great question. And the answer is, think in your gut and in your mind, look at your child's behavior. If you're trying to get your child to do something, or you're sharing something, or maybe you're just talking about something that you see and your child is looking away, rolling his eyes, look at his body language. If he's turning away from you, if he's holding up his hand, if he's saying no, 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 those are the indicators that he is not having fun. The indicators that he's having fun is he's looking, he's smiling, he's making eye contact without you making him make eye contact. That's how you know your child is interested and engaged and listening. You don't need to test them and ask them to say the word over to make sure that they're following you. You know if they're following you. And if you were giving them an instruction like come here and then they follow that instruction, then you know they are following. So that's how you know the difference. If you are feeling like you have to, like if you're not having fun in the situation, like, okay, we're doing the drill. Here's one more time and one more time and one more time. This is fun. That's not fun. That's you being compliant. So here's the thing. Think about, Josana, how you feel in the middle of your language facilitation activity. If you feel like, wow, this is fun, so does your child. If you feel like, wow, this is tedious and I don't know what I'm doing and it feels awkward, so does your child. Just like I said earlier, older kids, they are easy to perceive your thing. And if you don't feel confident and fun about what you're doing is going to be confident and fun for your child, it's not. If it isn't fun, it isn't fun. So that's how you know. All right, Amina. My toddler can talk in complete sentences. Oh, it was you that had that question, Amina, but still wants to go goo goo gaga. And that's why, because your child is still trying to talk like you, especially a toddler. They hear a lot of talking. If your child hears a lot of video, watching videos, always the video talking is fast, unless you have some really simple ones. Like there's a few little cartoons. I like Pocoyo. They use little simple phrases and they talk pretty slowly. But any of the animated stories, like, Puppy Pals or Nickelodeon or those kinds of things that have lots of characters and lots of storyline, usually the talking is too fast in those videos to actually facilitate some wonderful listening. So that's kind of how that works. Hey, Nikki, so glad you're joining me. So glad to see you. And there's Laura. Hi, Laura. Thanks so much. And Judy and Erica, thanks so much, everybody, for joining me today on this live video. I don't want to keep it on too long. I'll just give a couple more minutes. If anybody has a question right now, post it right now, and I'll get to it on the end of this video. If you are watching and I did answer your question, please consider sharing this video on your social media page so that other parents can know. Language Facilitation Q&A is available on Facebook every week, Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. And I'm going to take a little drink real quick. I started doing live Q&A on YouTube as well. So Monday is officially going to be my first weekly live Q&A on YouTube. So if you like the YouTube platform, or you know people over there, or you know people who don't have Facebook and can watch YouTube, Monday at noon Eastern. I decided to do that one a little bit earlier to help some families who live in the Eurozone and over in India, where it's not too late in the evening when I'm going live. So you can join me on Mondays at noon Eastern Time. Eastern Time US is when I'll be on my YouTube channel, which is called Waves of Communication. You can find it over there. And if you have questions for me about your child, if you are interested in learning how to specifically help your child with a custom program, I do have a whole range of coaching options. Now that I have the book, you can read about it. You can get it at your public library through your library's Amazon program. Check that out. You can read it on Kindle or paperback. The Audible book's coming out this November. I have an independent study course that is only $500, and it guides you through every process with worksheets. You create your own language facilitation plan. You find out where the blockages are, and you also get a bonus module about social skills training that goes, that's a $500 investment, and you have access to it for life. And if you do that program, you get started with it and you decide you want to upgrade into individual coaching, once you get started, you can roll the cost of that into my individual coaching programs. And at the end of the year, my lifetime coaching program is going to go up in cost, because I'm finding that it's just, there's a lot. Families meet with me twice a week. They can send me emails anytime. I'm reviewing videos. It is so much value that it's just kind of outpricing itself. And the starter program is still going to remain the same. It's going to be only $1,500, where you can get a custom plan. And with that plan, you also get the independent study course. I really tried to make options available for parents so that no matter what your price range, you can at least get started. And if you don't want to make any investment whatsoever financially, you have no money to spend, then head over to YouTube. Look for the strategy. There's some playlists over there. There's one that's called Get Started with Language Facilitation here. There's cognitive, there's neuroscience. There's 200 videos over there on YouTube about everything from diagnosis, apraxia. There's a potty training video over there. You can just search in my if you log on a computer anyway, and you search on my page, just pretty much any topic you can think of, there is videos on there. And I do the Q&As. The replays go up there so you can hear questions other parents are getting. And if you're savvy and you join me in the middle of a live Q&A, then you can get your question answered. So we've got a couple more here. So how to do it. My son is nonverbal. Hannah, my advice for you is, actually, if you are brand new to me, if you haven't ever watched me ever, the best place to start always is my free class on my website, wavesofcommunication.com. There is a free class. It's a 45-minute class. All you got to do is put your email in, and that explains what language facilitation is, what you need to do, how to get started. It links to all the criteria for success. There's written information, there's videos, it's all kinds of information on my website to learn about Waves of Communication. follow these Q&As. How to do it is too big of a question. Obviously, language facilitation works differently for every family. It depends on if you have one child or 10 kids, if you have, you're married or not, if you work or not, if you homeschool or not. All of those things affect language, how language is working in your home and how it will develop. And that's what I do in my program, is Seems Like Figure Out. So Amina says, question, it seems my baby learns more by others and not me. So Amina, what you need to do is you need to figure out what is blocking that process. What is it about what you are doing that is making your child not want to learn from you? There's only 2 reasons that children don't want to do things and work and play with their parents. Number 1, they think the thing that you are asking them to do is too difficult, or number 2, they don't like it. It's not fun. And if it isn't fun, it isn't fun. That's why I called my book that's why it's the title, because it truly, that's the number 1 blockage for every human. If learning something challenging, taking on something so big, like changing your whole communication system that you use, this massive change that you're undertaking, if it's not fun, you will not stick with it, you will not stay with it, and you will always revert back to your comfort zone, whatever you're using, dragging parents around and that kind of stuff. So that's what you need to know. If your baby isn't wanting to learn from you, you have to figure out what the blockages are. And Amina, if you need help with that, that is what I am very good at. That's why I call myself an intuitive language facilitation consultant, because in my program, what I do is I watch video. I have parents tell me about their life, but I don't look at scores, or I even look at the child in a very limited way. If I know the history of what's going on and I watch how parents currently talk with their children, and I watch how children respond to their parents, and I watch how parents respond to their children, and I see where in the process of that is this breaking down, because that's what it takes to learn language. Parents responding to kids and kids responding to parents. That's what language is. So even though you don't think your child is learning from you, your child is learning from you. They just are not learning from the structured kind of whatever stuff you're trying to get them to do. And if you have no idea what to do, you have 0 place to start, that's when you need to think about working with me in one of my programs, because I tell you everything. I tell you exactly what's going on to block your problems. I tell you what you're doing right and what you need to change, because if you continue to do the same thing you're doing now, you're going to get the same result. And I make this change, just like you do for your child, easy, happy, safe, and fun for you, because if it isn't fun, it isn't fun. So that's the most important thing. All right. Josana says, academics are never fun for my son, right? I can't make every activity fun, and I don't have a strategy to teach him. Using tablet for making teaching fun, but slowly that moves into playing video games, right? How do I stop using tablet but still keep math interesting? Josana, you need to think about working with me in my program, because whatever you're doing that you're getting him to do things, you're still bribing, and he's not doing those things because he wants to. The only way that teachers get kids to want to learn things like math is by making math fun. And you can make anything fun. Even academics can be fun if you look at some of the best teachers ever. Now, what is fun for one child is not fun for another child, and that could be the problem. Is you're trying to use things that other kids think are fun, but your child doesn't. And the only one that's important in this factor, in your case, is your child. So sometimes it's helpful to have someone like me take a look at the situation to say, I can tell you why your child doesn't like to do what you're doing, but you're going to have to accept the fact that if he doesn't like it, you're going to have to change it. So I know that, like I said, it's going to be very difficult. I can't give you exact strategies by just knowing what's going on and not doing. But before you're going to be able to teach any maths, you have to learn how to make it fun. And that's it. There is no negotiation. If it isn't fun, it isn't fun. And like I said, kids will do what isn't fun because they are made to do it. But that's kind of how they train elephants in, cruel ways, by punishment. And people will learn with negative experiences, but they won't like it, and they won't keep it, and they won't use that activity. Obviously, you need to understand, why do you want your child to learn academics in the first place? You want them to learn academics so that they are useful in their life. Just getting them to memorize words, letters, spelling, say things, cite words, all that stuff over and over and over again only helps them pass tests. It doesn't help them be functional. If you want your child to learn academics like numbers and measuring, cook together, do functional things, measure things in your life with rulers, use functional activities to teach your child, and then they have to it's going to be your teacher's job to make that school fun for your child to sit in one place and do. Because if you force a child to sit in a chair and they don't want to sit in a chair, and then you try to teach them math, they're going to be too busy worrying about the fact that they don't want to sit in the chair to focus on the math. And a good teacher will know that. And if your child's teacher doesn't know that, then you need to think about getting a new teacher, because you're not going to change that teacher to teach in a different way. You can only present your son with academic people, therapy people who will understand how your son learns. So if he doesn't like to sit and do structured things, then you need to shift into functional learning, especially with 7-year-olds. As they get older, you must do functional things. That's all that I'm coaching the older kids 10 and older. Give up the homeschool math for a minute. You can always get back to memorizing times tables to take a test later. But if you want to get your child interested in looking at numbers, understanding what numbers mean and how to use them functionally, and they're older than 7 years old, you better be doing functional math like cooking, measuring, building things, and using math that way, because they're not going to learn functionally otherwise. It just won't stick. Okay, so Nikki says, my kid responding to me is progress for my language facilitation. Most definitely, because kids responding to parents is what facilitates spoken language. It's not counting how many words a child says. That doesn't matter, because with natural language, sometimes we talk a lot. If we're excited, blah, 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 we're jabberboxes. But if we're feeling melancholy or kind of shy, or we have quiet personalities, we don't talk a lot, but maybe our words are more impactful. You have that one person in your life who doesn't say a whole lot, but when they do talk, wowza, they say important things. There's a lot of late talkers that have develop that personality. It's your child's personality that brings out the ideas that are in their head. You trying to put a personality on your child or label their preferences for them, they're just going to wait for you to do it and walk around until they have the opportunity to do it their own way anyway, especially an older kid. They'll comply and sit and do exactly what they want, and the very second they have a chance to escape, zoom, they're out of there. And if that's happening to you in your child's school or in those things, you need to think about making changes, because your child's brain is thinking too much about getting out of the room, and they're not paying attention to what the teacher is learning. The teacher must make it fun and engaging for your child. That is the teacher's job. You as a parent, your job is to make whatever you teach your child fun. If it's potty training, if it's cooking, if it's staying out of the street, it's got to be fun for your child to buy in and understand this is a useful thing. Now, fun doesn't have to be silly and goofy. Fun is successful. When you learn to tie your shoe, that's fun. When you learn how to cook your own food, that's fun. And it might be challenging. It might be hard to learn those things. When you learn to ride a bicycle, it's fun. But learning to ride a bike can be very challenging for kids, especially if they have some motor problems. But they will try hard if the outcome, if the end result is what they want. And kids want to communicate. So you just make it easy for them and eliminate the pressure. And that kind of engagement, smiling, looking at you, That is progress. That's how you measure it. And if you want to know how to measure it yourself without using tick boxes and numbers and how many words, record your kiddo every week. Make video. That's how I watch the families in my program. If they want to know, I'm feeling stuck, I don't know what to do, record some video and start watching yourself. How are you responding to your child? How is your child responding to you? And that's how you know that you will be able to, okay, he's engaged with me, he's listening to me, or nope, he's out of here, he walked away. And that's what you do. You have to know those things. So there's Sharon from Denver. Hi from Denver. Your child is autistic. It doesn't matter what is causing your child's late talking. Parents are the best language facilitators. So welcome to watching my episode of live Q&A today. And if you have any specific questions that you do, how can you help my kid how to get started? Sharon, the best place to get started, wavesofcommunication.com. Watch my free class. Start following my page on Waves of Communication. Watch my daily posts. Come to the live Q&As. Ask questions about specifics. Look at the live Q&As that I have done before on YouTube and watch the questions that other parents are asking, because parents are following my challenges, doing these strategies, and they are getting their kids talking themselves faster than speech therapy. I also have a book. You can go to Amazon, amazon.com. The book is called If It Isn't Fun, It Isn't Fun. Teach Your Child to Talk Faster Than Speech Therapy. If you type in If It Isn't Fun, It Isn't Fun, and my name, Marcie Mouser, you can find it pretty easily. And if you don't know how and you can't get it, then send me a PM and I will give you a link. So, yep, so Josan is working with me in the program. That's right. So this is what you do as you get with me and you start working with me. If we have problems, if you have problems and you're in my lifetime community, then you join my meetings twice a week and you come and talk to me about very specifics in those meetings, and I can talk to you exactly about what's going on. These live Q&As are very good general ideas, but language facilitation works differently for every family. What's fun for your child is not fun for another child. What's fun for you as a mom is what's not fun for another mom. Some parents are very outgoing. Other parents are very shy. You don't have to change and turn into being somebody you're not. You just have to learn how to shift how you're talking, because the most important thing, and I'll say it one more time, is how your child is relating to you, relating, responding, and how you are relating and responding to your child when you talk together. And if there's a disconnect, you're talking to your child's not listening, or your child's trying to communicate with you with behavior and you're not responding, that's when language facilitation breaks down and kids resort to using their behaviors and parents resort to using their words. And that's what happens. And then parents say, no, I want you to use my words, and kids say, no, I want to use these behaviors, and it breaks down and they come together, fight about how we're going to communicate, and they go back into their own ways. And that's when language does not progress. When you start to understand what your child's messages are, and instead of just interpreting them and responding to them, you add the language facilitation piece. Teach your child the words they need to share their wisdom with the world. When you do that, they will learn them. And that's how it goes. And there's Trisha. So, all right, Sharon and all of you people, thank you for joining me today on this live Q&A episode. I hope it was helpful. If you know somebody who has an older child, you're catching this on the replay, please give me a like. If you're watching on YouTube and catching the replay, share this video. You can share this with your friends. Subscribe to my channel. Like my Waves of Communication page. Every day I put out new content. There's new blogs. There's videos now twice a week, live Q&As. If you don't follow these strategies and work yourself, then there's nobody you can blame, because I give you everything you need. And if even with all of these things, you still need more assistance and one-on-one guidance and you want some more help, that's when you find me in my Waves of Communication page, wavesofcommunication.com, waves like the ocean. And tell your friends, because this is how parents are shifting. if speech therapy has been frustrating for you, even if you love your child's speech therapist and they're fabulous and your child loves to work with them, but you're still not hearing spoken language, it's because you as a parent need to do more. Not more teaching and flashcards, but more natural language facilitation. And when you do, that'll make that speech therapist look amazing, because that's how I did it. When I worked as a speech therapist in the field and I quit being the one to be the person to get kids talking and started coaching parents, the progress speed 5 times as fast. Parents are getting kids to talk super fast with language facilitation, and you can too. All right, everybody. That's enough for today. I try to keep these videos under an hour. Thanks again for joining me, and I will see you next week, Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Facebook for my next live Q&A session. And until then, get at it. Talk really carefully, slowly with your kids, and I'll see you all on my next video. Bye for now.